So, hello everybody. I've been on a quest to bring you more information about different role-playing systems that you may want to use going forward. And so far, I've concentrated on those that you could use that are world agnostic, so that you can use the system in an already existing campaign. So today, I'm going to deviate from this course, and I'm going to introduce you to Runequest. Now, this is the most recent version of this game, which has been around for a very long time. It's published by Chaosium, so that's the same company that also creates and has been creating the Cthulhu role-playing game, Call of Cthulhu, not Trail of Cthulhu. And it is very similar to that game in that it uses a D100 system, but it's a lot more intricate than the Cthulhu role-playing game. In Cthulhu, you have basic stats like POW, etc., like strength, and they are percentile. And then you have abilities, which are also percentile, but which are not related to your stats, to your basic attributes at all. In Runequest, it's different because you have your basic attributes and you have percentages therein. And then all of the other attributes that you have, all of the other abilities that you have are derived from those basic attributes. So if you have a very high score in an attribute, it also reflects on the related abilities that you have. It's been around for a good while, but it is very, very focused on the world of Glorantha. Now, Glorantha has also been around for a very long while, and I have actually done a character creation video on this channel where I go through the whole experience of creating a Runequest character, which is very interesting because when you build your character, during the creation process, you also build them using the history of Glorantha through how your ancestors who would have been alive during that history have fared during that history. So maybe they might have fought at a very important battle. They may have fallen during a very important battle, or they may have died from hunger or from pestilence or whatever. And all of this has done a direct influence on your character because they may have accumulated fame, they may have died in obscurity. And for example, if you've, or they may still be alive. So you may actually have grown up with both your parents. And this would also reflect on how your character is doing, how your character is experiencing the world that they're in. Now, this, of course, already shows you that the history of Glorantha is very much alive in the character creation process and also in the characters themselves, which, of course, means you cannot really use the RuneQuest system outside of Glorantha. That doesn't mean, and this is very important, that you can't use the world of Glorantha in your own system, because if you really like the world, and there is a lot to be said about the world, it's very interesting, it's very nicely written, I actually love it. And it's got duck people as playable. I mean, I would make them a playable race. It's brilliant. But the system itself is, in my opinion, it's kind of fallen out of time a little bit. It is very much geared towards people who really enjoy playing simulations. Even the attack and parry system has 25 different outcomes, which are based on the percentile chance of your attack and then the parry, because you can, basically impale. It can be a critical success. It can be a fumble. So you have anything from very critical to a complete fumble. And then, of course, depending on how critically you attacked and how critically successfully you attacked, then, of course, the defender, the parry person, also needs to roll. And they can also fumble or make a critical parry. And depending on how they react to this, there are 25 different outcomes, and you can see this in a table. And then, of course, there are also critical hit tables and fumble tables, which you then have to reference. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of looking up to do at the table. And they also have a really intricate initiative system which operates along speed ranks, which are sometimes based off of dexterity, but there are also different spells that come off at different times, and you really have to basically do this every single round, because obviously as you change your position in the world, on the battlefield, so does the speed rank change, or so can the speed rank change. And it is very intricate to manage this at the table. And so, since this is the big issue with this particular system, that it is highly simulationist and very, very complex, I would actually not recommend it. It's definitely not for casual players, but I would also not recommend it unless you have a group that is really dedicated to crunch and for whom storytelling is maybe less important, because there is a lot of moving parts within the system that you have to keep in mind and that you have to be aware of as the DM and as the player, to be able to actually get enjoyment out of it. That doesn't make it a bad system. It just means that it's not old school, because old school systems usually are very simple in terms of, you may have 1d20, you may have 5 stats, and that's it. There are no or hardly any abilities, that would be really old school. But it comes from probably a different design philosophy, where you kind of try to be as explicit and as clear and as diversified in your character as you possibly can be. And then you have to have the mathematics and the statistical probabilities behind that to make the system work. And when you use a 100 system for combat, you always have to roll comparative rolls, because otherwise it's not going to work. If you have like modifiers and then you have to hit a target, let's say you always have to hit 20, like in Midgard, or you always have to reach a certain level of defense that the opponent has, then that's very different from saying, I have an attack value of 90%. So in 90% of the cases, I will be successful. Then, of course, if you have somebody whose parry is also 90%, this will go on for a very, very long time if you simply roll for success, 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 or failure, 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 failure. Then you have to grade the successes and failures. You can have a critical success, but you can also have a critical failure. You can have a medium success. But if I attack with a medium success and the other person parries with a critical success, of course the parry will still be successful, although I did hit. So in game terms you would go, or in real life terms, well, I hit their shield. And this also happens in Midgard, for example, where you have the endurance score, which basically always comes into play when you successfully hit and the other person successfully parries, and you just need to reach a 20 for each of these to happen. But then instead of losing life points, you lose endurance as the person who parries, the person who is being attacked, because it is assumed that when you basically do the parry, and you can imagine that this would be very real life-like, you lose endurance because it makes you tired. And once your endurance is down to 0, you get a -4 to everything. And that, of course, will make things a lot more difficult for you. But still, battles can take a very long time. And if you use a percentile die for everything, then of course opposed rolls are the only way to go, because that's the only way the mathematics will work. However, lots of people play this, and it's got a really excellent following, and there is a lot of material out there, which is why I would still like you to check out even just the world, because there's a world book for Glorantha which explains the story, the setting, the history of it. Because even if you may not like the intricacies of the very complex, in the best but also in the worst sense of the word, system, but you might like the storyline and the setting in which Glorantha is set, or in which Runequest is set, I should say, because it's also got a very interesting rune magic combination, because in this world everyone is somehow magical, everyone has magical abilities, and they are governed by runes, and you get your runes mainly from the deities that you worship, and everyone worships a deity. There is no one, as far as I can tell, who's an atheist. The gods are there and everybody believes them, everybody's affiliated to a deity, and these deities govern runes, and these runes govern the way you live your life. They influence you. They also mechanically work a little bit like alignment in alignment-based systems. And if you really, really work against your rune, so for example, your rune is life, but you keep killing people, then you're basically violating your rune. To the extent that a DM can say, well, you have violated your rune so much, I'm going to give you a penalty, because now you are basically working so hard against your own nature, and this comes at a price, which is something that I really, really like. I mean, I think it works a lot better than the alignment system, because your runes also give you power. They give you abilities. You can roll against your rune values to augment certain abilities. So I really like a lot of the ideas, even the mechanical ideas in the system, but the very complex combat system really puts me off, which is also why, I mean, I did play a couple of combats from the beginner's box, which I also showcased on my channel, and just basically wanted to get into the flow of things, understand how it works. So I built 3 characters, and I went through the combat that was described, and I just realized I would not want to even do this in my gaming group or at the table or with anybody, because I find it tedious. And as soon as I, as the DM, have to feel this is tedious, this is not giving me any joy, then I would not actually recommend this system and ask people to play it with me. But like I said, this is me. There are other people who really love RuneQuest, and there are also channels that feature a lot of RuneQuest materials. And I've got the book, and not only this, I also bought the starter set, and I don't regret having spent the money on this, because it is a rich world. And I really also like the book itself. It's high quality. I really like the way they introduce the system, because they do it through the story of Vasana, who is a PC that is being created and that is living their life, or her life, I should say, it's actually a female PC, through this book. So she basically guides you through character creation, and it is a really, really well-written book. And even for that, it deserves to be bought, because I also like supporting good role-playing systems. Even if I don't necessarily play them myself, I think they need advertising, and I would definitely ask you to check out RuneQuest. And what is even more important, RuneQuest on the Chaosium website has a solo adventure that you can go through. It's completely online, so a lot of the bookkeeping is taken care of by the system, and you can get a feeling for how it plays. And I would really like you to check this out. You can also watch a playthrough on my channel, but since you only need a web browser and the internet to actually play it yourself, it costs nothing. Go and check it out, because it's really well worth your while. So that's all from me. RuneQuest, Chaosium Inc. It's a recommendation, not world agnostic, because the world and the setting and the system are intricately linked. But if you are looking for a completely new experience and you do not have your homebrew campaign already running for years, check it out, and talk to you soon. Bye.